Good.
Drop us some drink with it
What's up to you? Water? Yeah, water. No, water if you can.
Cold, stop cold.
Evening, everyone. Hope you're well. Just about to go live with the Bishop Desmond Tutu to talk about. Sorry, Desmond Jadoo. Do apologise. I don't know why I've got Mr. Tutu on my mind, but hey, we're going to be talking about a very sensitive but a topical issue at the moment. So thank you for joining in. Hope everyone is well and enjoying the weather as well. So we've got about 10 seconds before we go live. So please get your questions, comments, more importantly your experiences and questions for the. If I call you Bishop, is that right? Yeah. For the Bishop. So please do ask away as well. So we've got 30 minutes of Bishop's airtime. So we've got another guest second half. Hello and welcome to the Community Wellbeing Show. My name is Mr. Ali, as always, on a Tuesday evening between the hours of 8 to 9 p.m. Thank you for joining Radio Abdi Awaz on www.abdiawaz.co.uk. The student number is 01216829735. And as always, we are bringing you the best guests, the topical issues to the forefront. And I've been meaning to discuss this for a number of weeks now, and also I think we had pre-prepared guests, but also wanted the right person to come in and discuss this rather delicate and sensitive issue. And today, for the first half of the hour, I have none other than Bishop Des Jadoo to come and help me navigate this topic. And the second half, I have a Somalian Muslim who has his own experiences about Black Lives Matter, and he's going to give this sort of religious Islamic perspective as well, and how important it is for us to treat everyone equally regardless of their background. So first of all, this is your second time that you are sort of coming. The first one was actually pre-prepared, which was all about knife crime, but this one has resulted out of what has happened primarily from America after the, I wasn't going to say murder, but I don't think the court case has even started yet. So we will say killing, should we say, for the time being, of George Floyd. And obviously that's gone viral now, and not just called ramifications in America, but here across the globe as well. So before we even go into the topic, I'm going to sort of just get you to say hi and get your initial thoughts about when you saw that video.
Good evening, and thanks for having me back here. I think one of the big issues has been with the killing of George Floyd. You're right, it is a killing. Was that is the inhumanity and the inhumane way that he was dealt with. But, you know, a shopkeeper calling someone for using a fake $20 bill. Shopkeepers, well, when it is right, one would say.
Yeah.
And I think the shopkeeper, I feel sorry for him the most, because he probably regrets ever doing it.
Yes.
Because he didn't realise what it would lead to. I mean, when you look at you've got to actually look at the overall video of it, not just the incident. They had him in custody. He said, I'm claustrophobic, I don't like going in there. They should have taken his health and well-being into consideration and call what we call, you know, the old-fashioned meat wagon, which is bigger. And say, well, you go in there instead you know, and take him in. Instead of that, they escalated it. And the whole idea of when you look at policing is, you know, police are there to de-escalate situations if they can. They actually escalated this.
Absolutely.
That's what they did. They escalated it to such an extent where he was held on the ground for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he died there.
Yeah.
Then if you even see when the ambulance came and they picked him up, and it was police officers who were in the ambulance, they just picked him up, threw on a stretcher like it was a piece of meat, and
walked away.
And off they went.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it, you just say, you wouldn't treat a dog like that. And that's the thing. One of the things was, though, because I am currently dealing with a death in custody case, which hasn't been spoken about much. It's been in the media now quite a bit. And it's a chap called Simeon Francis who died in Torquay.
Okay.
He's black.
Yeah.
And he died in police custody on the 20th of May.
Yeah.
And the difference with America is this. America will escalate things quite quickly. But the problem here in the UK, when a black man dies at the hands of the police as well, you know, in custody, or when there's police brutality, we don't seem to be horrified here.
Absolutely.
And that alarms me, because we're thousands of miles away from America. So why is it that we are fixated on America? Don't get me wrong. It's wrong. It's caused a lot of, you know, ramifications. But why is there not the outrage here of what's happening on our doorstep? Because the point is this. It could happen to any one of our children.
Absolutely.
Right here.
Absolutely.
In the UK.
And I suppose this is where the cause has really taken its own life and its own legs, really, because I think George Floyd is just another case, another name, and it may be in a year's time.
Yeah.
It may be just another statistic that we recite and we sort of regurgitate.
Yeah.
But I think this time around, it does feel different, Desmond. It does feel as though people are moved by what they saw. And for me, I think if we are to expect any change, and when I say Black Lives Matter, I'm putting in every person that's non-white, if that's okay. But it's got to be the indigenous white community that needs to stand shoulder to shoulder, because they are the ones that their voices will unfortunately be listened to more than ours. They're the ones that need to stand shoulder to shoulder, and they will also be the cause for that change. So we need to lead it. But if they've got, if they're standing side to us, I think that we will get that necessary change. And I've seen that this time round.
And that's the important thing that you've just said there, that we have to lead this.
Yeah.
The African Caribbean community are disproportionately represented in terms of police brutality and deaths in custody, more disproportionate than anybody else. Let's make no bones about that, followed closely by the South Asian community.
Yeah.
In terms of disproportionality. The issue is that we face here is an issue of engagement and an issue of accountability, because we seem sometimes not to want to hold anyone to account. And in America, it's a different ball game. But in America as well, they take action swiftly. Yeah. Those cops were immediately sacked. They were fired. And, it went through when the mayor said, right, I want charges. And it went through the district attorney. District attorney came back with, I think it was murder 3 charges. Yeah. And it's now down to murder 2. Murder 2 is the right charge.
Yes.
Because obviously he didn't leave his house that morning with the intention to kill George Floyd.
Sure.
But then again, some people would argue that he knew George Floyd, so you never know.
That's
right. But, the facts are, I don't think he left with knowing he'd have an encounter with George Floyd that day. But the facts are, at the end of the day, he responded, he failed to perform his duty, and that's it. But let's not lose sight of what's happening right here in our great city, Birmingham. Yeah. Because I'm dealing with 5 out of 6 police brutality cases where excessive force have been used.
Yes.
I'm not dealing with a 15-year-old lad boy in Aston, in Newtown rather, that got kicked whilst he was on the floor. But there's a cyclist in Aston that was thrown on a car bonnet and punched and kicked. Yeah. There's another chap who was punched in the face in Handsworth. There's another chap who was tasered, who was unarmed. There's another chap who's had his leg broken in Digbeth during an arrest for stealing baby milk and wipes. The point I'm making is we've got all of this happening right here on our doorstep. What George Floyd case has done is waked us up to the realization of what's happening. And I think the Chief Constable last week apologising, it's a step in the right direction, apologising for how his officers treated the black community. But hey, we've been talking to him about this for over 3 years. Yeah, yeah. You know that as well.
Absolutely.
We've been telling him, particularly the black and Asian boys, you treat them badly. Yeah. I operate across the city, yes. I hear about what happens in East Birmingham as well. And when we do get the complaints, we do pick them up and we do challenge. Yeah. And I can assure you we do challenge. But it's been falling on deaf ears. What George Floyd's case did, it actually forced the police to say, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think for the intent of the purposes of this discussion, we have the Bishop here until 8:30. So we're going to go straight into it. We're going to try and focus the discussion within the UK borders if we can, and
Sure.
what change, because we can bring more change and bring
Yeah.
awareness here really. And when I saw the initial protests and the demonstrations, I wanted to really be part of that and sort of lend my support. I think, and as always, I think we got to be careful that these protests they are peaceful protests, and we don't lose the moral high ground at all. And certainly on social media and bits of the national media as well, we did see elements of individuals, not to the extent in America whereby there was sort of open looting, but where there was a bit of clashes with the police. And as you say, there may be sort of mistrust and there's no relationship with the police. But if we are going to be moving forward with this, we need to be engaging. We need to sort of have that high moral ground. And I certainly will call out anyone that sort of thinks that they can use this opportunity to malign the legitimate cause that is Black Lives Matter and go on the peaceful protest. And hundreds of thousands are. But we got to be also mindful of those elements that will use this to sort of hijack or axe their own agenda. We want to make sure they stay at home.
Well, what we did on Friday, we had a rally in Birmingham City Centre,
Absolutely.
which was covered, and we called it We Matter. And it's a movement that we want to do locally, meaning that if you matter, I matter. If your neighbour matters, you matter.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying, because we're talking about equality. Importantly, if we look at what has impacted upon the black community, we've got the Windrush scandal, absolutely massive.
Absolutely.
Which is
72nd anniversary yesterday, wasn't it?
That's right. We've got COVID-19,
Absolutely.
and we've got police brutality and another death in custody.
Yeah.
That's all during, and Windrush was going on before the pandemic, but this is all during this season. And the point we're making is this, that enough's enough of this.
Yeah.
And clearly now we need to have action. And you are right, the houses of faith, all of us, we need to work together on this agenda. But importantly, that we as a community have been engaging with the police over a number of years.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I was actually in a police meeting today and I said, when are we going to stop talking and there's tangible action?
Absolutely.
And the important thing as well, I said, the Chief Constable made an apology about 10 days ago for his treatment of black people. I said the next day, the Police and Crime Commissioner announced that he's going to recruit 1,000 BAME officers. Well, and he was blunt, black and Asian.
Yeah.
That's fine. You'll get the Asian applications, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
You'll even get some black women applying.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the black men.
I did some research on this. So I think I'm right in saying that in total in the UK we have 3% of the population that is black.
Yeah.
But in the police force, I'm not sure whether it's both for male and female, black male and female, but it's 1.2 or 1.3%. So it is half of what the overall population is. So we say that the police should reflect this community and its population. Certainly for the black community, that's not the case.
No, it certainly isn't. And the thing about it is, at the end of the day, look, let's make no bones about it. There is a historic issue with the police from back home, which I'm sure people from Pakistan, India have the same view of the police, right? But the thing about it is, yes, there is already a barrier there.
Yes.
But clearly in this country, they say policing by consent means that you respectfully go about your duty to keep the Queen's peace. That doesn't happen when you see a black man being thrown on top of a car bonnet for riding his bicycle in Aston, for example. That, or because somebody hears a car crash, comes out of their house to investigate, just like me or you would, because we're nosy like that, aren't we? And the next thing, you end up being tasered. Clearly there are issues here. But what's alarming myself even more, and I'm sure it'll harm you as well, and what cause you to ask questions rather, is that, hang on a minute, these officers are doing this in front of somebody else. And the person that they're with, the other police officer, it's as though they're endorsing the behaviour by not reporting it.
Prime example this was last year, there was an officer in a unit who was mimicking the Asian accent.
Yes.
And also was saying that, the Asians stick together, and before you know it, the whole department will be of Asians, and they'll all be sort of, going off on their own, and they won't mix and stuff. And he was saying that with his colleagues, and unfortunately no one picked him up or challenged on that. And he sort of had a slap around the wrist, unfortunately, and I think that's going to be reviewed now. But I'm going to sort of be quite controversial and put a devil's advocate here, whereby we know that, in terms of stops and searches, the black community are times 4 more likely compared to the white community. If you look at our prisons, they are more overrepresented by the black community and the Asian community. And people are saying, when, for example, in Winston Green, Lozells or Handsworth, there's a report of a burglary or an incident where a black person is involved, why shouldn't they be profiling a black person? Then if that is what's come through to the radio for the police officer, shouldn't they then be given the authority to stop and search? And also the fact that if, again, this is a trope, correct me, whereby black people are more involved in maybe, aggravated burglary and whatever, the police want to go in heavy so they don't get the wrong side of that sort of, the aggression. So that is something that, people have sort of said in the past, and I want you to sort of address that really, if you can.
It's proper intelligence-led, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the chap in Aston, they said a black guy stole a black bicycle. That was it.
Yeah.
Right? No description. And they just dragged this chap and threw him on a car bonnet. The point I'm making is this. His bicycle's grey and white.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a description, just a black guy. Now, is it the case that all black people look alike? And that's the point I'm making. If it's proper intelligence-led, you've got to go around and you've got to use your common sense. Now, the facts are, they said that this chap was aggressive in his build. This chap was 5'4", and he was about a size 32 waist, and he weighed probably about 10 stone. Now, that's really an aggressive person. The point I'm making with all of that, I'm making fun of that, but the facts are, it's the stereotyping that goes on. Absolutely. And the systemic racism. Because the first black person they see, oh, you're a burglar, let's grab you, let's search you.
That's right.
And remember, stop and search, they talk about go wisely, and they're supposed to have grounds. Now, clearly, if someone's wearing a yellow overcoat, I don't know why they would be, but a man's wearing a yellow overcoat, and they're a fashion icon, and they said, well, a black guy in an overcoat was walking down Somerset Road, Handsworth Wood, right? And we suspect him of something. But when you go down there, you see a black guy with a red overcoat. Why on earth are you going to stop that person and search them? Should you not be stopping them and saying, that's a bright coat. Have you seen someone in a yellow one, by the way? Yeah. Now, that's fair. Yeah. You're asking a question. But what's happening is you don't get that. No. They still want to stop you and search you but what they're not doing, they're not profiling the description. They're profiling the colour of the person.
Yes.
And that's the issue. Now, the other side of it is, and it happens to members of the Asian community as well. Remember, we say, at the moment in our community, they're saying, the black community, they're saying, if it's not COVID-19 they get us with, it's Windrush. And if it's not Windrush, it's a death in custody.
Yeah.
And if it's not, they're killing our kids. And I'll explain that. And and I mean, many of you, the listeners, will resonate with this. A child's going about their business. They're stopped. I need to search you. Why? Shut up and be compliant. Do what I'm doing. They slam this 14, 15-year-old kid against the wall. Right? They cuff him. They search him. They may slap him. He then decides enough. He kicks the officer. He's on a charge for assault on a police officer. The fact then that the stop was unlawful, that child ends up then with something on the record that's very difficult to explain that will stop them from getting a job. Absolutely. Assault on a police officer or obstruction of a police officer in the execution of their duty is deemed quite seriously. And that stays on your record for 10 years.
And it's a vicious cycle, isn't it?
That's right. So actually, they're killing our kids because then our kids can't apply for jobs because they can apply for the job, they're not going to get it because they can't pass a DBS check.
And Bishop, what I would like to say is, you know what? We're all reasonable, black, Asian, white. If an officer comes to someone with respect, and a bit of banter, so, I think I've had some intelligence whereby the following person may have, do you mind if I question you or find out who you are, where you're going? You know what, I would bet my bottom dollar that 9 out of 10 people would answer that politely, to their request. But when they go in there heavy-handed with what you said, with their tropes, with their stereotypes that we might have to kick out, have to go in there heavy, what do you expect? For you to get respect, you got to give respect.
I mean, if you look at me, If you look at me, I'm 6 foot, just over 6 foot.
Yeah.
I'm 23 stone.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing about it is, I laugh sometimes because I do wonder what they would really do if they ever wanted to challenge me.
Yeah.
They'd probably call for a van load of police
Yeah,
officers.
absolutely.
They'd probably ask for them to bring shields and and you make sure everyone's got a taser on them, etc. It's a serious issue. And the thing about it is, the way in which the police have been treating members of the black community for far too long now has to stop.
Absolutely.
The other thing as well, one of the things that I've been looking at recently, and with COVID-19, is when they like to lump everybody together in certain circumstances only, not all, in certain circumstances as BAME. I think sometimes they have to separate us,
Absolutely.
not to divide us when you're looking at specific things that impact upon certain communities. And this is why I welcome the figures being broken down in this case to African Caribbean or black to Asian, because the disproportionalities are there. Because now if they gave us a global figure and put BAME, we'd be sitting here wondering, well, who is it? Who is it? The fact that they've broken this down, it means that we can address it. We can address it in a unified manner. But, we know it's 2.5 times. For the Asian community, South Asian community, and 4 times if you're black. Now, importantly as well, if you're black, you are 3 times more likely to be tasered. Now that is of equal concern. Although on a national scale, if you're black, I mean you're 10 times more likely to stop if you're black. The point I'm making is this, right? We're wondering really, why is it, and where Black Lives Matter comes in, and where we're going with our We Matter agenda, is this: why do these disproportionalities exist? And we need to work together to deal with it. That's it. It's not rocket science.
No. I'm just going to read a few comments first.
Sure.
Jazbia, evening. Hello, Bishop Des. How are you? Javed Akhtar, Salam Alaikum, Mr. Ali and Des. Mukhtarim, Salam. Islam, pray you're well. Great community man, Rev Desmond Jadoo, always helping the community. Absolutely. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Mr. Jadoo provided bleed kits to local shops in Birmingham. Absolutely. Yes, we know, and we were part of that training, so we know exactly the amount of work that Bishop does. Mr. Ali, good evening to the Bishop. That's from Mujahid Iqbal. We salute who provides the community with voice and always challenges inequalities. Absolutely. Darren Atkinson, ex-Villa striker, absolutely, was tasered. Yeah, we know about that. That's a famous case a couple of years ago. Mukhtarim, how many complaints are reported to the IPCC? Raise it with the local MP. Interesting. Elaine Dulcie, hi, I'm listening to you. So a lot of love, I'm happy to hear the Asian community is taking. No, absolutely. I don't think we should differentiate. We are one on this particular issue. So I'm going to sort of move the conversation on. First of all, I think everyone at the moment sees a visual of people kneeling, but may not know the history behind it and what does it actually signify. Maybe just in a couple of minutes, if you can sort of just touch on that before, what we can maybe share with our audience in terms of what we can do as a community in order to sort of, control the controllables. A lot of the things that we are asking the police to do, but the stuff that we as a community can do, I want to touch on that once you've touched on what does the kneeling signify.
It signifies that we're all one, and that spirit of unity more than anything else. But also as well in the black community, we're people of faith, and really when we pray, we get down on one knee as well. And that's the root behind it, because and during the civil rights movement, there was a lot of getting down on one knees, because Martin Luther King was a great man of God. And when he prayed, and the other night when you saw, many may have seen Selma, when he went to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, I remember the name this time, the second time when they went, because the first time they were turned back with the extreme violence, the second time he went down on one knee, everyone followed him, and he prayed, and then he turned back. And sadly, a member of the clergy, who was white from Chicago, was murdered that night. And then Lyndon Johnson signed a Bill of Rights, giving, the vote. And importantly as well, the National Guard went out and protected them on the march to Birmingham, Alabama. the thing is, with that spirit of oneness is something that's got to be there. Many people now are looking at it as respect.
I see.
Many people are saying, you know, it has to be an element of respect. I don't believe in forcing anyone to go on one knee.
Good.
You either do it, if that, because I can't anyway, this knee's back.
Yeah.
I tried it the other day in Centenary Square.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
God there was something there for me to hold on
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
But, you know, the thing about it is, you know, we don't force anyone to go on
Yeah.
one knee. If you wish, you can. But the thing about it is, on a personal note now, I'm not into symbolic gestures anymore. I'm not even into the talk. We're into the action, meaning we start doing stuff.
Yeah.
We have conversations,
Yeah.
we plan,
Yeah.
we get on with it. And that's what we need to be doing right now. And what George Floyd's murder has brought to the forefront, too much talking has been going on for a number of years. Statistically wise, a few statistics for you.
Please.
In 1981, these are years now, we had Operation Swamp, right? Disproportionately impacting on black people more than anyone else. We had a report done by Lord Scarman.
Yes, I heard of that
Right?
name, yes.
1985 in Lascelles were riots, okay, uprising. We had a report locally by someone called Julius Silverman in 1986 reporting on that. Then, when we go into the 90s, 1993, the racist murder of Stephen Lawrence. In 1999, the production of the Macpherson report accusing the police of being institutionally racist.
Yeah.
Then, if we go on to the early 2000s, I think 2001, there were a couple of issues. But then if we go on to 2011, we had the police shooting of Mark Duggan, which
Yes.
led to disturbances,
absolutely.
which led to the two lads being killed on Dudley Road. Okay, so we've got that as well. We've had various reports during that time.
Yes.
And then 2015, I think it was, the David Lammy review, talking about disproportionality
Absolutely.
in sentences. Sorry, in 2001 was the Judge Ray Singh report on Birmingham, saying that Birmingham was a racist city, and if they didn't tackle reflective governance, we would have pockets of communities, you know, piling into certain areas.
Yeah, yeah.
The facts are, all of these talked about systemic racism.
Yeah.
It talked about the police and their attitudes towards the black
Yeah.
community, which has now developed into the Asian community as well. And the facts are, at the end of the day, we're still talking about it.
Yeah, yeah.
27 years since the racist murder of Stephen Lawrence, which blew the lid off the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are we having these conversations today?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of work to be doing, but as always, I'm a firm believer in that let's control what we can control. And this, you know, you have discussions with your friends, and you know, one of the things that I keep on advocating is that certainly, you know, if we want other people to respect us, we have to love and respect ourselves. And also we have to make sure that we give our kids the best possible chance. And we know people from the black community, people from the Asian community tend, you know, when I say Asian community, again, this is where it's absolutely imperative that we break down the figures. The Indian community in terms of education are miles ahead. The Chinese community are miles ahead. But if you look at the Pakistani, the Bengali, the Afro-Caribbean community, we are unfortunately in the bottom tier. So unless we get that bit right, the education bit right, we won't. Because, you know, one of the reasons why they got away with having slaves many centuries ago is because they deprived the black community, the slaves, from having a good education so they could think independently. The other bit I would also talk about is the importance of a family unit, the importance of having, you know, black male fathers to the family unit. You know, these are important discussions that I think we should be having in synergy, synonymously with what's going on, you know, with the police, within, and also for the black community to get more involved in politics as well, with the, you know, policy decision makers, get involved in the right places, for us to be really counted. You know, what are your thoughts about some of the comments I'm just making?
Well, you've probably looked at one of my websites because it's there.
Yeah, yeah.
There. If you look at my Birmingham Empowerment Forum website, on the front of it looks like a manifesto. And I looked at it the other day. I haven't looked at it in a long time, that first page, because it's quite a generic page. And when I read it, it was actually put there in 2012.
Wow.
And it's still relevant today. I looked at it because I said, do I need to take anything off this? And there was nothing that I needed to take off it. And a part of that talked about reflective governance, making Birmingham a greener city. But importantly as well, we talked about getting more people into politics, dealing with the mass disaffection that we have in communities, etc. And the thing about it is, you are perfectly right. That's how we're going to address it. And one of the tasks we have now is to deal with the mass disaffection that we have in our community, get people registered to vote, get people politically active, get them particularly mobilized, and start getting people around decision-making tables. You can't have others making decisions. I mean, I can't make a decision on mosque opening times. I can make a decision on church opening times, but not mosque opening times. But I can sit down with you and share ideas. Absolutely. I was at a meeting last week and people there from mosques, etc., and Gurdwaras, and we were sharing ideas, sharing problems. When I gave them our problem about singing and dancing in church and people running around with the Holy Spirit, they all looked at me and said, well, good luck to you with that one. You know, but the point is, they looked at me and said, that is a problem. And they said, we don't know what to advise you, but thank you for sharing. The fact you were able to share and they understood, that's what we call real community.
Absolutely.
You know, and we need to have that spirit of community back. And this divide and conquer syndrome that's going on, let's break that.
And it's worked it's been around too long and it's worked. So Bishop, I know you have got another function at 8:45 in Smedic. I'm just going to ask you to leave your sort of final concluding remarks as always, and maybe, you know, something with a positivity and a bit of hope, please.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is, at the end of the day, I say this: Black Lives Matter, but importantly, we matter. Windrush Lives Matter. COVID-19 Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. You know, and when we say Black Lives Matter, in that we incorporate police brutality, we incorporate deaths in custody, you know, stop and search, etc. However, we then transfer that into what we call we matter. So right now, if you matter, I matter.
Absolutely.
So if I say to a police officer, right, for example, why are you coughing him? Then if you're coughing him, cough me. Oh no, you're all right. Why am I all right? If I'm all right, he's all right. And that's what we're trying to say. Because remember, as black people, we're not asking for special favors. We're asking for equality. Just level the playing field. But the last thing I'll leave is this. Do you know why we face discrimination? Because you said something quite important. Under slavery, they wouldn't educate us, right? However, look what we can achieve, and look what we achieved whilst under oppression. Just imagine if we really work together, what we could achieve together. And that's what we must take out of slavery, is that positivity, that this country's wealth, when people are tearing down statues, right, which I disagree with, by the way, tell the real history. But whilst people are tearing down statues, remember, we are the ones that help to create the mass corporations in this country. And all we got to do, work together, and we can do it for ourselves.
Thank you.
I can't say nothing more positive than that.
No, absolutely. What a great message to end on. And as always, from myself and Radio Abdi Awad, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Blessed. Stay blessed.
God bless you.
Thank you. Just going to an ad break now, guys. So just going to have a little break and get a breather, because that was a real mammoth heavyweight show. So thank you as always. So just going to have a bit of a water, and I'm now going to bring in my second guest, local community champion, youth champion. I would say a bit of a teacher, a bit of a mentor as well. So a bit of a different perspective now, and that's what this show is all about. So thank you, Bishop. You take care.
Take care.
And if there's anything we can do, you know, we're here to collaborate.
I know.
Absolutely.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Abdi, coming to the hot share, my friend. How are you? Okay?
I'm good. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
all good.
Okay?
Thank you. That's not yours. We'll get you a fresh one. Thank you. Okay?
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Everything well?
Yeah, all good. Thank you. Not too bad at all. See, you've been out for a jog or something?
I've been to the park and I went home and I actually, it was so hot today. It's going to be 30 degrees tomorrow and the day.
Hottest day, isn't it?
Exactly. So
So I'm quite conscious of time, so I'm going to go straight into the show if that's okay.
Yeah,
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Mr. Ali. Second half of the Community Wellbeing Show. The first half, if you've just missed it, we had the Reverend, the Bishop Jadoo, who was talking about his experience of why racism exists and why, unfortunately, George Floyd won't just be the last statistic. This is systemic, this is endemic, and we have to work together if we are to overcome that. For the second half of the show, I have none other than Abdi. He came maybe about 4 or 5 months ago to talk about another topic, but I thought it'd be nice for us to complement what the Bishop says for us to maybe talk about, racism and Black Lives Matter within the, I would say, the Muslim sphere. And also within the BAME community as well, because there seems to be also, it's not just white people that are racist, it's every race, and we all got to acknowledge and appreciate that. And as Bishop said that, if we as a BAME community can't get together, then we've got no hope of eradicating racism. First of all, Abdi, thank you for coming and taking time out. Really appreciate that. Before we even sort of get into some of the others, I mean, you've been sort of following the murder of George Floyd and the ramifications across the globe that he has had. Just want to get your initial thoughts about, happened. I mean, are you quite optimistic that this will be a real catalyst for change, or is just this will be, by this time next year will just be another killing?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, Mr. Ali. It's always a pleasure to come on this radio. So I think what happened to George Floyd and police brutality is something we suffer with it's something that is out there. There are some good police officers, and there are those police officers who actually they oppress,
yes,
and they cause oppression and so on. So what happened to George Floyd? Unjustifiable, completely wrong,
absolutely,
can never be
absolutely
justified. And the guy was saying, I can't breathe so many times. And the funny thing about this, there was a lot of police officers present at that time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they should have stepped in. This shouldn't have happened. Completely wrong. So it's wrong, and it's very sad that racism still exists in society. Police brutality still exists. So my initial thoughts are that obviously we need to come together as a community. We need to be strong.
Yeah.
We need to be able to tell people that we bleed the same color. We are
Absolutely.
exactly the same in terms of it comes down to a human issue really, because even though we have different names, even though we have different hairstyles, different clothes, different cultures, we still bleed the same, and we're human. So I think there's still we've come a long way. We've still got a very long way to go.
Abdi, I've never been to America, and when you see these pictures, I'm not, any day inclined to go there. But when you see that, and the person on the floor is restrained, is not really struggling, you've got 5 or 6 at least officers around you, you're not in any immediate danger, the individual on the floor is saying, I can't breathe. How inhuman must you be as an officer for you not to do anything? But secondly, more importantly, how low do they think of black people that he is willing to kill him in front of people recording and telling him that he's dying, he can't breathe, he's going all blue and black, and he just carried on regardless? How low must they treat black people, or see black people in America?
No, absolutely. It's something. America is a country. America suffers from their own problems. It has gun crime. It has so many problems. And obviously, look what happened to Trayvon Martin in 2012. There is Mike Brown, who also got murdered. So there's a lot of examples of police brutality in the USA. Which again, the government, the U.S. government should do something about it. There should be some measures in place where this sort of thing doesn't happen ever again. So it's very sad. We have police brutality here. We have police brutality in other countries. But it's all about the people who are responsible. First of all, should they should have some penalty, 100%. And also, people should learn the lessons, and they should learn the right lessons from this.
Absolutely.
I'll come to this. I'm sure you will touch on this later on. But I went to the Black Lives Matter protest in Birmingham a couple of days ago, and the message was quite clear. People were united on hope. They were united on solidarity. They were standing together, united. There was a lot of people from different diversity. We had white people, there was Asian people, there was people, and it shows you what Birmingham is made of. People coming together and standing on solidarity to say we need justice. Police brutality needs to end, and we need to make sure as a community that every single person does their bit. I think that's very important.
No, that's a great couple of points that you've made there, and I want to sort of just maybe make it specific to the Somalian community. Is at the moment it's all Black Lives Matters. Do the Somalian community think that this is something that they are also part of and can relate to, or is it specifically, in your opinion, specifically an Afro-Caribbean thing?
No, absolutely. I think Somali. I mean, we can relate to it, because of course we've got a bit of Arab in us, but we are black. We're from Africa, and so we can definitely relate to it. There was an incident that happened with Shukri Abdi, which is slightly off topic, slightly unrelated, but there is a lot of injustice in the world, and I think we need to be able to make sure we deal with those issues.
Sure.
There's a lot of underlying
Sure.
issues as well. People need to educate themselves. Education is key. I think education is number one. You need to be able to know, how our diversity benefits us and how we are stronger, how we are richer in a very diverse background. So I think it's the Somali community is not prone to this. We are black. We are proud to stand with our black brothers and sisters from other parts of the country to say Black Lives Matter. We're all human. Every lives matter, including
Absolutely.
Black lives.
Absolutely.
And we're all human, and also. This goes to a very wider point, Mr. Ali, which is we need to make sure that there needs to be this interaction with the police. There needs to be this engagement with the police, because if the police can't hear our views and they can't hear what we are suffering from, some of the issues are not going to be resolved. So I think that's very important.
That's a great point. And at the moment, when I've seen these demonstrations, I think I'm applauding. I'm saying great. But at the moment, one thing that I haven't seen is, almost like an action point. This is what we want as a result of going onto the streets, of doing speeches, of, speaking to the media, raising awareness. It'd be nice for, the likes of yourself, the likes of Bishop to maybe, a handful of key people get together and say, look, I don't think I've seen a time like this where everyone, black community, the Somali community, Asian community, white, have come together and asked for the Black Lives Matters to be taken such an importance time at the moment. But I think we should capitalize on this by having a series of demands. So this is what we want. And at the moment, unless it's happening behind the scenes, I haven't seen any sort of bullet points of, almost like a manifesto really to the police, to the politicians. This is our expectations. These are our demands. Until you sit down and negotiate with us, we're not going away.
Well, absolutely. And actually, I'm going to a police meeting to talk about these issues, really. There's a meeting coming up, which I've been invited to go on. And it's good to be open and frank about these issues and to talk about why this matters so much. You talked about, absolutely, I totally agree. There needs to be maybe a set of demands, maybe a set of requests that the police need to look at. I think they've done this in the USA, where they said, they want to end all forms of discrimination and full recognition of black human rights, and immediate end to police brutality, to the murder of black people. Something like this. People need to put that together. And so when the police can look at it, and again, community engagement comes in, there needs to be, I was talking to a police officer at the demonstration, 10% of BAME police officers in the West Midlands Police. That number needs to be increased. There needs to be more police officers. I think that is part of, I think it's not just one solution. There is many things and many steps and measures people can take, we can take, in order to tackle the police brutality. And people, I think, I did love some of the placards and some of the posters. There was a lady who had, don't kill the Mandem. Which I found very, very good. But also there's another lady with she wrote all the names of the black people who have been killed, by the police. And I found that, and I said to her, she did a lot of research. She spent time to actually look at the research, look at history, because this stems back, racism. It's wrong, needs to be stamped out. It should not exist in society, but it's still there. Absolutely. I've experienced it. Other people have experienced it. It's not a nice feeling. And when you have someone who, who goes through this every single day, you can imagine what they feel like.
No, absolutely well said. And I think we will not stamp out racism until, when you mention about, that the people around, when this sort of examples take place, they actually call out, they stand up, regardless of your colour. So, for example, if you're in a football stadium and you hear one person doing a racist chant or saying something, the rest, all his family, friends, the people that are standing nearby, call him out. saying when those officers saw that this particular person was maybe meeting out some of his racial prejudices on that, Floyd George, then they should have intervened. And until we get to that place, we've got a lot of work to do. So I'm going to ask the same question that I asked the bishop in terms of, the kneeling. What does kneeling mean to you?
Well, kneeling to me is a sign of, is actually a sign of, it's something, a symbol to honor George Floyd and his passing away, because they're kneeling, people have been kneeling in protest up and down the country. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, I don't agree with the statues and violence coming in, completely wrong, but I do agree with people having, number one, the right to protest peacefully, and number two, making their voice heard. So the kneeling to me is a symbol of, it shows that, we stand united with George Floyd. It's a symbol of, unity, community. It's something that people are doing rightly, because I think it's important that people are showing that, a set of people can make a big difference, and I think that is very important. So that's what it shows to me, basically.
Absolutely. So, as I said to the bishop, I think it's absolutely important that we, as a black community, BAME community, we get our house in order before we ask our demands, and we want to be treated equally. And what I mean by that is, I think, as Asians, as black, we got to love and respect ourselves first and foremost, and I don't see that. Secondly, education is absolutely vital. There's a reason why we get treated badly is because we tend to do well, the least well in education. I'm talking about the Bengali community, the black community, the Pakistani community as well. And also, certainly within the black community, we have a very high number of single mothers. We have a very high number of absent fathers. So the young black adult doesn't have a positive role model, and that's something that we need to change. Also, the fact that we are, heavily making up numbers for stop and searches, which again we have no control of, but within the prisons, again, the Asian community and the black community are disproportionately represented in those institutions. In drug dealing, in these sort of, burglary, in violent crime, stats are that we are taking part in more of those sort of crimes. So unless we start addressing these sort of things, which we can control, we can do something about unemployment and about that sort of stuff, then, I think it's going to be very hard for us to sort of move forward. So there's stuff that we can do before we start knocking down the doors of, 10 Downing Street, of the police trying to demand change. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, I agree. I mean, if you have kids, if you have young kids who are at home, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Obviously, I know the lockdown is being eased. The Prime Minister made a statement today. The lockdown is being eased at the moment. But if you have kids in the house and they are playing Xbox, they're playing PlayStation, Grand Theft Auto, and they're playing the games and stuff, if you're a parent, I think it's important to sit with them, 1 hour, 2 hours, and have that talk. And teach them the values, or some of the values, and also morals, and that we are all the same regardless our colour, where we come from, and where we. I think that's important, and to respect every single person. If you see, if you're a young person, 20, 25, and you see an elderly person who is from a different culture struggling with their shopping, it's a human thing to help them. It's a human thing to help your neighbor. It's a human thing. So it all comes down to helping each other. So number one, I agree. I actually think there's 3 things to this which are gonna go a big way. Number one, education, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely bang on. Education starts from home, actually, and then it goes to the classroom. Number 2, I think community engagement. West Midlands Police, the Met Police, engaging with communities. There's engagement happening right here in Birmingham. There's engagement happening, I'm sure, across the country. Very, very important. And number 3, I think, the third thing is people, we need to have more, the percentage of people in, senior positions in companies, position in the West Midlands Police, position in, we need to have more representation, the BBC and big organizations, they need to make sure they diversify. I think that's very important. That's my phone.
We don't know where his phone is. One of the things that I'm going to move the conversation on, that there's no boundaries within racism. And I want to sort of one of the reasons why I was sort of keen to get you here is you as a Somalian, the Muslim background as well. You've been here in this country, and you have a lot of interaction with the Pakistanis, with Asians. Have you experienced racism from the Pakistani community towards the Somali community?
No, I've not experienced anything. No,
Good.
Obviously, there's been, again, there's this. I'm not gonna say knife crime, because I think that is a word that's overused. I would say there's a lot of extreme youth violence. Let's put it that way. Which happens, which is when two. But again, that comes with education. And the kids sitting down with them, talking to them. There's a lot of initiatives. There's a lot of cuts that happen in youth services, but I think there's a lot of more things happening as we coming out of lockdown. More. There's. I know you run an amazing organisation, that works with young people in terms of football and sports, and so we need to see more of that. We need to see more of youth centres in terms of sport, different activities in sports. But yeah, I've not experienced
Good.
But it's important that we stamp it out all together. Absolutely. And it's not here.
No, and also I think on this particular issue about every life matters, Black Lives Matters. I think we as the Asian community, Pakistani community, we have to stand shoulder to shoulder with our fellow black brothers really on this cause. The reason being is because as Muslims we hold our Prophet very dearly, and the first muezzin, the first one who recited the azan, one of the Sahaba was Bilal, Sahaba Bilal, absolutely, and he was the one who recited the first azan as well, and he was of a black background. And in the Prophet's last sermon as well, the Prophet said, a white has no superiority over a black person. A black person has no superiority over a white person, except by their good deeds and by their piety. That just goes to show that if we as practicing Muslims, as people of faith as well, that if we are going to be proper Muslims, we have to have this as our cause as well, because it was fundamental for our Prophet who virtued this. And like I said, I'm not too much of a religious person, but one of the Prophet's nan, or someone who was looking after him, was again of a black person who was looking after him, who he treated as his mother as well, because he's also a mother. So there's a lot of overlap that we can bring and recite as an Islamic faith, and we should take this and adopt this as our own. Talks about that without getting too religious.
No, of course. I mean, I'm like you. I'm not a very religious person. I know. I would probably say I know the bare minimum of the basics. But look, from a religious perspective, Islam teaches us obviously to care for people, to look after every single person, to be united. And you're right to highlight, the Prophet's last sermon, when he said, no Arab is superior than non-Arab. We're all the same. And that message, I think, is very important that people recognize this. But Mr. Ali, also, I think it's just a matter of, yes, it needs to be stamped out. We want to see a world, and I'm waiting, and hopefully it will come. I want to see a world where, why can't we not just live in peace and harmony? It's not that hard, really. It's just, you live with your neighbors in your neighborhood. That's, you go to them, how you doing?
Absolutely.
So why can't we live in harmony? I really hope, but we live in a society where, when I heard of a story of a young lady applying from a minority ethnic background, applying for a job, and she had to change her name a couple of times in order for her to Elizabeth, for her to get an interview. She had to change her name on the CV. This is what it comes down to. Absolutely. So discrimination is still there. It needs to be stamped out, and there are practical steps we can take, and we must take them now before it's too late.
Abdi, I just want to echo that. One of my friends, there's two examples I'm going to just quickly recite if I can. One was a father advised his son to apply to the university using a different name. a non, should we say, a non-white name really, change that to a more sort of indigenous kind of name in order for him not to get rejected at the university that they wanted. And another case was whereby a person using a sort of an Asian name applied, and 70 or on applications, still no interview, and he applied to the same company, same application, nothing changed, just changed the name on it to an English name, and he got an interview. And even though he didn't get the job because obviously they saw his colour when he came through the door, it just shows that racism is still alive and well. So I think there's a lot of work that we need to do. I'm just going to read out a couple of comments if I can as well. So just to sort of see what the our audience is saying. So keep up the good work. That's fine. Rodney King was another one. Yeah. So Elaine Dulcie, I think you're a real activist on this. So this is not only an African Caribbean issue. Asian has issue as well. Terrorism, absolutely. Thank you, Elaine, for painting that out, because we get profiled in that instance as well. Countless injustice and equality, absolutely. Great man, Abdi by Javed. Good point, Mr. Ali. What was the rest of the police officers doing? Just watching. Absolutely. Mujahid, great point. The black and Asian officers also get racism within the police force, and so we know how hard it is to attract people to get into the police force. Once they're there, then they're sort of, what you call it, don't make it easy for them. Do you know what I mean? So they're in a rock and a hard place between the Asian community thinking that, oh yeah, what are you doing working for the enemy, so to speak, and then you have your own colleagues that are not making it easy for you either, and then not quite sort of including you as part of the team. So not ideal. I think some communities think that it is only black people with injustice and equality. The Asians has lots of racism towards the black people, as they think they are not part of it. Racism is an institution. Yes, as my neighbours are from Pakistan and we can speak freely and things in the community. I attend meetings and there is a concern. Here we go. This is the reason why black and brown people matter. So there's a lot of synergy.
Some powerful comments, by the way.
Synergy that, this is a cause where we all should be on this. Certainly people from the BAME community, but also the white community as well. So just your thoughts about some of the comments that people are sharing.
The comments, I think most of them, if not all, I agree with what is being said and what's being mentioned. I think obviously there's still a long way to go. If you're black, and this is some statistics here for you. If you're black, you are 14-15% more likely to be stopped and searched by police. Maybe the figure can be updated, but I think it's very important that people know that that there's discrimination and it needs to be dealt with. Some of the points were around more representation. I agree. In the FTSE 100 companies, in the courts, police system, education system,
politics,
more head teachers, politics as well. We need more people. I know the House of Commons is changing, but it's still not there yet. It needs to reflect the country we live in.
And I think the point, I think was it someone who made, is the current government reflective of the community? So there are a fair few number of the Indian community that are there, and we applaud for that. But the question was, we're not talking about the BAME community now, we're talking about the black community, because they have their own sets of cultures and values. And are those voices being heard and represented at the top table?
No, at the moment, I don't think they are. That's the honest truth. I do not think they are. They should be, they can be, and also, we need to work towards the, obviously Black Lives Matter. We talk about Black Lives Matter, but I think see, when you say Black Lives Matter, you see, Africa is a big continent. You know what I mean? It's a massive continent.
Absolutely.
So, look how many countries are in Africa, and so it doesn't matter where you're from. Different cultures, whether you're Nigerian, whether you're from Ghana, whether you're from Jamaica, I don't know all the countries on the top of my head. And my geography is not excellent. But yeah, it needs to be. We still need to do a lot of work in terms of getting justice. Really.
When we say Black Lives Matters, of the people think that that's at the expense or at the cost of someone else. So when we say Black Lives Matters, we are saying that Kashmiris, Palestinians, everyone's lives should be on equal platform, on an equal sort of standing. So there should be no discrimination of anyone with a different colour, with a different faith, of a different creed, of gender, whatever it is, absolutely that should be wiped out. And unless we have that slogan that we are all in this fight together, because at the moment we don't have any power, and the ones who have the power are the white people. They have the power, and what we can do is work with them, empower ourselves, work with them, get them to see that what they are doing and what's being done to us is unfair based on just what our skin color is or what maybe our faith is, and hopefully get them to see our cause, our fight as their own.
No, I agree. So the Black Lives Matter movement, so obviously, this has been going. I think if you look back at the history, Malcolm X, 80s, 70s,
Yes.
there's a lot of racism. But I
Yes.
think the Black Lives Matter. I think first of all, when I came on your show, I did start with, it's very important that all lives matter. Doesn't matter where you're from, whether you are black, white, green, yellow, doesn't matter. I think it's very important that every life matter.
Yeah.
So I just want to highlight and echo that statement. All lives matter, including black lives, including Kashmiris, including people from India, people from Afghanistan. We're all brothers and sisters. And for goodness sake, we need to come together and we need to be able to be united. Just like we united when we stand for prayer.
Yeah.
For prayer, you're standing. You go to, you go to the mosque, you go to other religious places, and you don't care who's next to you.
Absolutely.
You don't care whether the person is from China or whatever. So I think that's very important. So all lives matter, including black lives. We've got more to do. We need to stamp out racism. There's different forms of racism, and there's a lot of underlying issues, and I'm sure we can do that together.
Absolutely.
If we're united.
One final question before I ask you to give your concluding remark, Abdi, is how do you feel about trying to address some of the lack of representations in the courts, in the police, in the in politics, by advocating positive discrimination?
That's a very good question, and so I think it's all about. Personally, I think it's all about listening and engaging to those who are in charge, the authorities, having a dialogue with them. And sitting down with them and telling them these are the issues that we have as a community. We want to highlight those issues. I'm very glad that a meeting is happening this Friday with a lot of people coming, which is amazing. We need to see more of that, and it's very important that we have this discussion. So then so it will allow an opportunity for myself to go. Now, I'm not speaking on behalf of the whole Somali community, but just the things I've seen in my area. And I think if for personal experience, so then I think what the question to your answer is, engaging with them, telling them that positive things should happen, and this is the ways which we think it can happen, and give them, as you said, a set of objectives that they can work towards in order to.
Thank you, Abdi. Just going to give you 30 seconds to give your concluding remarks, as always, please.
Well, first of all, thank you again for inviting me. It's an issue which is very close to people's hearts. Black Lives Matters, every lives matter, including black lives, and it's very important that we stamp out racism and we look at some of the underlying issues. That is very important. We need to engage. We need to educate ourselves. So read more books. I've probably read more books during lockdown than I've read all my university. Yeah. It's incredible. So we need to read more. And by reading, knowledge is light, and I've learned so much. Not just cooking, by the way. I've learned so much, and that's very important. And I think we should all try to aim and create a better society for all of us.
Well said, Abdi. Thank you for coming in and sharing your experiences of what Black Lives matters to you. And all I will say is this is a issue that we should all embrace. The struggle is real. The struggle is ours. And until we unite and take this issue forward with one voice, it will never get to we won't get anywhere. So, as always, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your opinions and for your comments as well. Until next week, God bless, and look after yourselves and each other. Bye now.